Hey, this is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. Hey HA, thank you for moderating. Can you hear me? Because for some reason I cannot hear myself on my headphones. Okay. If you can hear me, then this is totally enough. Today I wanted to play some more action in the Nahverkehr Dresden DLC to show another part of the PZB punktuelle Zugbeeinflussung system, and for that we have to use the Talent 2 train again, a train that I really like as a train. It is always fun driving. I haven't driven it so much in the past weeks, so I will need probably some time to get into it again. To speed up things a bit, I will just spawn in the service, not walk up to the train. We all know what the Talent 2 looks like. We have used this train in the PZB O and the talented Tempomat stream, where I explained the basics of PZB in the O mode. And today I want to focus on one specific issue that comes in this universe. So what we do, we start with setting up our train, opening the doors. This is our Talent 2 Baureihe 442, the 3-car variant, and there are not so many people that want to travel with us today. Yeah, actually the Talent 2 services here in the timetable mode, I think I played them all, because you can see so many interesting things about PZB and signal variations on those routes, and only the Talent 2 runs on those routes. The train is quickly set up. You don't need to do a lot. Everything you need to do is turn the master key to on, set up the security systems, CIFA and 2 switches for the PZB, and then we can almost already go. The light is already to marker lights, but it's totally okay when we are running during day. I always like to set the displays, the MFDs, to the night mode with the contrast switch, because it just looks better. Okay. Set the reverser to forward. We don't need to unlock the brakes. We don't really need to release the brakes, because putting the power handle into the first notch, 5% power, releases the brakes that hold the train in place, and we can apply throttle. We are in the PZB starting program, what equals restricted 1000 Hz monitoring, from which you can release if you see a signal of at least 40, and don't expect another 1000 Hz or 500 Hz monitoring coming up, and then you can just press the release taste and release from this start program, and it vanishes from your display. Still, we have to keep below the 60, so that we do not get docked for speeding, and then we can hand over to the talented Tempomat to keep us on the 60. Here you can see the Baureihe 101 with the ICE train. We will have to look at this locomotive, the Baureihe 101, closer in a different stream, because it has been overhauled immensely with a lot of detail concerning the brakes, how the brake system works and more, and this definitely merits a closer look. Oh, I just read it. Hank is not there with us because we are not shunting. We are just driving this train from A to B, and this is usually, and I think in real life it is as well like that, a driver-only operation. So we do not have a conductor, and actually we don't need to couple, we don't need to set switches, so Hank would not have anything to do, and on the other hand he would not have any leg to stand on, because on the outside of this train there are no gangways, there is no room actually for him to stand. No, he has to stay in Canada or in the United States, and I think we will pick him up then. Now we're slowing down for our first stop. I always thought we should be down to 40 when we are going along a platform, but I heard in the meantime that it's totally okay to go faster if it is a long platform. Can go 60 or even up to 100, but that seems a bit fast in my opinion. But as you see, a lot of things work. As soon as you end up to stop in the spot where you are supposed to stop without knocking everybody out of their seats. But I think this was nice enough. We are a bit late because we did not start immediately, so we have to get a bit into the timetable. But for now everything seems working out well. This is Dresden-Mitte here. We have 1 or 2 stops to perform until we get to the GPA magnets, what will be our subject for today. Careful, this is a new... oh, now it vanished. This was a new announced restriction to 60. And we would have had to acknowledge that and gotten 1000 Hertz. Now that it vanished, we can accelerate to 80. What is line speed here? Yeah, poor Hank. Actually, I like it. It drives well, and it is the perfect train actually to demonstrate a lot of things that come with PZB. Now we are running into a new 1000 Hertz. What is actually slowing us down to 50. What is a bit awkward. Because we have to stop here anyway. We will see if that 50 is still active when we're starting out from Dresden-Neustadt. Do you like this train, AJ? Or is it too boring for you? It will not be among your favorites. Yes, I understand. Well, Baby Bullet and Javelin, they are obviously much more spectacular than the Talent 2. The Talent 2 is a working horse. It is I think it is a very useful train for all those commuter services. And in my opinion, it is more fun to drive than an Electrostar, for example. Although I enjoy driving the Electrostars as well. But they are not so super challenging to drive. You can't wait for the Steam stuff. Well, I have to learn a lot more about Steam to actually be able to stream that, because it's a whole different world. How the locomotives work, how the brakes are applied. And obviously I want to play it without a HUD. And there is not even a speed clock on most Steam engines. So careful, we gotten into a restricted monitoring because we had the monitoring for the 50 on. So we are controlled to 45 at the moment. But since we see that the signal has cleared and there is no longer a 50 restriction, we can release even from the restricted one. Restricted one does not prohibit you from releasing from a monitoring. What you cannot release from is a 500 Hz monitoring. Now we're going down this little hill. Make sure that we do not overspeed. So set the Tempomat to 75 instead of 80. And now that we are at the bottom of this little hill, we can accelerate to the IT. That we do not overspeed, I don't know if this is correct. Yeah, that is actually true. But there are controls on some trains that have an indicator that shows you the word overspeed if you're speeding. So it must be a word, I guess. So, while we are accelerating to 160 kilometers per hour on this little fast track part that we are going on, I wanted to go to our presentation for this evening and discuss what we came here to learn about. This is our old presentation about PZB O. We've talked about this in length and a couple of times. We know that PZB O works with the system that we get a signal that announces a speed reduction, and after a while, usually 1 kilometer later, we get another signal that enforces the reduced speed. And PZB is more or less a system that checks if the driver conforms with this and applies the reduction in speed limit. And we have learned that all the speeds that are announced of 100 and more, 100, 110, up to 160. The typical PZB stuff does not apply. We do not have to push our Wachsamkeitstaste, our acknowledge key. We just have to bring down our speed. We've learned that in between we have to push the Wachsamkeitstaste, get the 1000 Hz monitoring, have to slow down to 80 in 23 seconds, and for speeds announced of 80 and 90 it only applies if we are traveling with a certain speed 15 kilometers above the announced limit. This is what we already know. We know that if we are approaching a stop signal, meaning a speed reduction to 0, then the same thing applies at the beginning, and then we get on top the 500 Hz monitoring after a while. So we have to drop down to 80 first during the 1000 Hz, then to 60 until we hit the 500 Hz magnet, and then within 153 meters to 40, and then stop. And this in PZB O and PZBM as well, with different values. And an information that I have been withholding so far, the same procedure for the stop also applies with all speed restrictions that are announced below 40, meaning to 35 kilometers or below. Then you get totally the same setup with the magnets, and the 500 Hertz magnet is active as well. Obviously you don't have to stop at the signal, but you go to your target speed. But those reductions are rare, and in the game I don't know if there are any. I might have seen some on the Rhein-Ruhr-Ost or something like this, but they are extremely rare. But don't be surprised if you get the 500 Hertz monitoring, even if it is not a stop signal. So what we want to focus today on is this part here, the 100, 110 and so on, all the speeds where you do not have to hit the Wachsamkeitstaste and you do not have a classic PZB monitoring. Here the system just relies on the driver to bring down the speed, and this is where the stuff comes in that I want to look at today. And for that I have to quickly roll through our next slide. This is where I wanted to end up. It is about Geschwindigkeitsprüfeinrichtungen or Geschwindigkeitsprüfabschnitte. You can see those words look intimidating. It's best choice of words in German to tell you what it is about. It translates more or less to velocity control installation or velocity control section. Depends whether you are talking about the installations like the magnets that are in the track, or if you want to talk about the part of track where those magnets are installed. So it is either the speed control or velocity control installation or the velocity control section where all this happens. Yeah, those words they tell you everything in not so many letters. Well, in many letters actually. That's why we always use these abbreviations like GPA or GPE. And what is it now? The thing is, you get a Vorsignal. We have not yet talked about the German signaling system, but we will actually do this in some stream, and then I might want to elaborate about the Vorsignal Hauptsignal system that we have in Germany and the different signal systems. So much for now. We rely on a system where you get a signal that is a Vorsignal denoted with this X sign on the signal telling you this is the advanced warning, telling you what you have to do at the next Hauptsignal. And at the Hauptsignal you will see what kind of board there will be fixed to the Hauptsignal. Then you actually have to comply. And we are using, since we are in the east of Germany, the special signaling system HL. And you can always recognize this system if you see signals that have like a lit band or a stripe underneath the other signal. Sometimes it is not lit at all, then you cannot really distinguish it from afar, but if you see signals that have those stripes, then you know, oh, you are in HL territory. And my signal here that I put up here has a flashing green light without any number attached to it, just a flashing green light. And this is a HL4 signal telling you that you have to slow down to 100 kilometers at the next main signal. We will see just a signal like this a few minutes more into our service that we are playing at the moment. If you encounter a signal like this, it is always a Vorsignal, a distant signal. It will always have this X attached to it, its post, and it tells you now there is no problem, you can go with whatever speed the line speed allows, but at the next main signal you have to slow down to 100 kilometers. And this is our next main signal. Main signals you can usually easily identify by this plaque at the mast, or Mastschild they are called in German, so a sign that is attached to the signal post. And if it is an orange-ish red, slight red, vermilion red, or whatever you might call it, and on a board that has those white ends and on the top and on the bottom, this always identifies this signal as a main signal. It can be attached below the signal. Sometimes if you have those signals that are attached to those bridges, then it can be very small next to the signal, but this sign always tells you this is the main signal, not only a distant signal but the main signal. And you can see here this band I was talking about in green. It can be in yellow too, but this one is in green, and this aspect here, green over yellow over this green band, tells you you have to go 100 now. This is what was announced by that signal. This is the lower part, and the top part tells you when you are through all the switches and have left the Weichenbereich, when you are out of the interlockings, if you want to use American terms, then you can go back to line speed. This is the non-flashing green on top of it. So those HL signals always have the part on the bottom half that tells you what applies now, and at the same time they will give you an advanced warning of what happens later. And this, we had it in our stream last week, is a bit like, or very much like, the Canadian system, where you often have aspects that tell you clear to stop or limited to medium, where you have one signal that has on one half, top or bottom, an indication for now, and on the other one tells you what will happen later. And this is why I use the HL signal system here to more or less cut the bridge to the stream that we had last week about the Canadian signaling system. So totally different signaling systems, but the idea of telling you what is now and what will appear later, they share that. And I always like to see those connecting ideas, connecting logic between totally different systems. Yeah. This speed that is ordered by this HL signal at HL2 of 100 through the next turnouts, I will call the V signal, the speed that is ordered by the signal. And obviously when our train coming from this direction here is traveling with 160 or 130 or whatever speed, it has to slow down to hit the 100 here. And we know that we do not have to acknowledge this signal here. There will be not a 1000 Hertz magnet, so PZB is just trusting us to get us down. This is why there can be certain installations, those GPEs, in a GPA, in a section of the track, to check if the train is actually slowing down. And if it is not slowing down enough, then the installation can stop the train. And how does this happen? We have 3 magnets in the track. 2 of them, if you look at them, and also in the game, it is actually modeled quite nicely. They have an S on them. That means they are no magnets that actually influence the train, but they are used to switch the PZB installation on the train on and off. And those magnets can be around the 2000 Hertz magnet, or they can be both on one side. There are different ways to install that. You just need to know these magnets are used to activate certain programs in the train or deactivate them again. A 2000 Hertz magnet is a magnet that we have not heard about. So far we have heard about the 1000 Hertz that are usually connected with the advanced warning signal, and the 500 Hertz that is in front of the red signal usually. The 2000 Hertz magnet is a magnet that well, it does not know a lot of fun. It just, if it is active and a train rolls over it, it stops the train. It initiates an immediate Zwangsbremsung at once. No fuss about that. If the 2000 Hertz is active and you run across it, your train will go into a penalty brake and stop at once. So usually those 2000 Hertz magnets are installed at red signals. So if you run the red signal, the 2000 Hertz tell the train stop at once, and the train stops somewhere behind the red signal. And we use this in this installation as well to check if the train is slowing down enough, and if not, the 2000 Hertz magnet is active, and then the train will be stopped. So the train comes and it runs through this magnet, for example, and it starts the speed control sequence, and if the train reaches the 2000 Hertz magnet too fast, then it will be stopped, because those two magnets have a certain distance in between, and if the train hits the first S signal magnet and the speed checking procedure is initiated, and then if it is within a certain speed, let's say going for 100 with 100 kilometers per hour, then it takes the train a certain amount of time to get to the 1000 hertz, and if it is traveling slow enough, then this time has elapsed before it hits the 2000 hertz. The 2000 hertz magnet gets switched off and nothing happens. If the train is too fast, then it will hit the 2000 hertz magnet before the specified amount of time has elapsed, and then the magnet will still be on, and then the train will be stopped. And you can call this speed control at this point, and the speed that is controlled here is called Vmax, meaning this is a speed that has been established as a reasonable speed that the train must not exceed at this point. So it will not be this speed here, the speed that the train has to keep under when it passes the signal, but it is a bit higher, but not so high. And how high actually the speed is, or what speed is controlled at this point, is given in a directive issued by the Deutsche Bahn Netz AG, and it tells you if V signal, the speed that the train has to be at this point, is 100, 110, 120, 130, then at this point here this speed will be controlled. It will be 120 for an incoming speed limit of 100, it will be 130 for 110, and so on. You can see for the lower speed reductions we have actually more leeway at this point, and for the higher ones less. On the other hand, the distance gets shorter, that this magnet, the 2000 hertz magnet, is away from the point where the speed needs to be enforced. So this is actually the system here. So if we, in our example, if we have to slow down to 100, then at this distance here, 485 meters away from the signal where we have to be at 100, this magnet is supposed to check if we are running not more than 120 kilometers. Yes, hi, Jasingas, we are doing driving school here. And as you can see here, there is a certain kind of leeway. Actually, those systems are not working really exactly. It can be that you get checked for 115 at this point when the 100 kilometer per hour is incoming, and so you have to more or less keep under that. So if you know that there are GPA magnets, it is always advisable to keep way below the speed here, so that you do not get stopped. And I have checked this in the game with a couple of test runs, and the green number indicates where I have not been stopped, and the red number indicates with what speed I was traveling when I got the Zwangsbremsung. So you can see that the game actually stops you quite short here. It controls you more strict than you would expect for the 100, and maybe it is just within the tolerance, within the leeway for the 130. We will run, when we resume playing our game, first in the 130 that is secured with a GPA magnet set, and then in the 100. And here we get controlled, I think, too strictly. We should be able to go a bit more than 107 or 108. I think I will actually demonstrate this later by going deliberately into a penalty break at this point. If you want to read it up and check if I maybe made a spelling error or whatever, you can read it up in the Richtlinie, the directive 483.0101a wo on, at the spot given here. Obviously it is in German. Yeah, what I have on this, if you see this, then you got the Zwangsbremsung. The S on the red is always you got the Zwangsbremsung. On the talent here with your MFD, you get also those text messages, Geschwindigkeitsüberschreitung, meaning overspeed, and then penalty brake, Zwangsbremsung. So this happens if you are above the control speed here. Going back to the train. So we're still accelerating to max speed. I will just zoom in a bit so that we see better what happens on the MFD and what the signals are indicating. At the moment we are still accelerating. The Tempomat will keep us to the 160, what is the maximum speed under PZB O, and also the maximum speed that is allowed by the law if you are not running under LZB. So every train that is guided by signals, by trackside signals, must not run faster than 160 in Germany. So we are traveling at the maximum allowed speed now. This signal here with the yellow R has no indication regarding speed. It is just telling us which way we are going. So that we know across which switches we are going, what speed limits apply, and so on. Normally the driver should know that anyway, or he can read it up in his Weinböhla system. But still, sometimes those paths get switched around because of something unforeseen happening. And so the driver can be told which way he will be routed. And now we're getting closer to the area where we can actually run into a speed restriction, and the first thing that we will see is a KS signal, a flashing green with a red 13, what is an advanced warning that we will be approaching a reduction in track speed from 160 to 130. And this will be controlled with GPA magnets. And I will take down the speed to 135 so that you can see when we hit the magnets that we are not stopped even if we are not at the 130. You will see the magnets soon. They appear here on the right side of our track. They are 3, a set of 3, like they are coming now. Here. 1, ding, ding. And this is already the next one. And since we were below the controlled speed, we did not get a 2000 Hertz. And now the next thing that will happen is that we run an HL4 signal, a signal with flashing green without any number, telling us that we have to slow down to 100 at the next signal. And from what we read in the directive, we should be good if we slowed down to 120 minus 5 for leeway. And now I'm going 115, slowing even down to 110. And here are our magnets, and bam, we get a Zwangsbremsung. So I suspect that in the game they always control with 10 kilometers above the speed, and not with the values that are given in the directive that I just cited. Here is our main signal. You can see it. You can see the sign with the red on white. And now we are actually running into a 1000 Hertz. Now we're not actually, we just stopped short in front of the 1000 Hertz. You can see it. How to recover from a Zwangsbremsung. You hear the sound. You can see the text messages. 2000 Hertz Beeinflussung, Zwangsbremsung. That means the GPA magnets stopped us short. You can see the S indicator for the penalty brake and the sound. As long as the sound is on, we cannot accelerate our train. We have a traction lock. Even if we get the combined power handle to 0, we cannot go on. So how do we release? We hit the Freitaste. Here are all our PZB keys that I usually operate with keyboard shorts. Here's the Wachsamkeitstaste, the acknowledge, like a ball, and here is the flap one for release. So if you use the release, you can end this annoying noise, you can end the whole procedure. You can see that your brake cylinders are full and that your brake pipe is empty. That always happens with an emergency brake application, whether you apply it from the emergency brake switch or if it is done by the PZB, it always drains the brake pipe. So we have to wait until our brake pipe gets air again. Sometimes you can help if you release the independent brake. I don't know if this is prototypical, but you can see now the yellow hand is moving and the brake pipe is filling again. And as soon as the brake pipe is filled again, it will fill up to like 4.3, 4.4. Then it should usually stop. Now where is it going? Did I so? Yeah, up to 5. That's good as well. We're on a passenger train. I think my values were for freight trains with 4.4. Now we have our brake pipe filled again, and you see that the pressure in the brake cylinders, this is the upper gauge here, dropped from about 4 bar to 2 bar and a bit. And now if we put our combined handle back into power, then the brakes release fully and we can apply power again. Now not forget that we are passing a signal that tells us to slow down to 60. That's why we get 1000 Hertz monitoring. We acknowledge that and we are controlled to 80 now. But obviously I won't accelerate to more than 60 because this is the speed that was announced. Yeah, those are the GPA magnets, and sometimes it is really funny because you think, why did I get a Zwangsbremsung? I did not even reach the signal where the speed reduction was effective, and this is the whole idea about approach control. We have this in the access system in the Northeast Corridor. We have this in the TPWS system in Great Britain. We have this in the KVB system in France. All those systems have a system to check if the driver is actually slowing down enough before he actually reaches the signal that orders the speed reduction. But you need to know that, otherwise you can totally run into this. And I don't think that this implication for the 100 is totally correct here in the game, because it controls you to, I think, about 10 kilometers too strictly. Should be okay to pass those magnets with 114 at least. Now we got our 500 Hertz because the signal at the end of the platform is red. You can see at the moment we are controlled to 45 because of the 500 Hertz. And now that we stopped, the control speed dropped to 25 because when stopping or going too slow, Lucas wrote in Discord that special friend is like that in the track plans he used. Okay. So you're saying that it is actually correct that they control you to 107 or 108. Maybe 110 if you subtract the tolerance. I don't know if it is in real life at this point. I can just see how it is in the game and what I can read in the directive. But if it is like that in the track plans, then the driver would be informed about that, and then you know that you have to slow down. Yeah. Well, I think in real life they would actually just slow down as fast as possible to the 100, because then they are out of everything and they don't run in any problems. And in real life nobody would just try to stay as close under the limit as possible, but just go on and try to comply with the speed reductions as soon as they are announced. But thank you for the input. That is valuable. And for everyone playing here, you should make a mental note that you get to control this. Okay. The next thing I wanted to update about the talented Tempomat stream that we did a couple of weeks before is now we are in a restricted 500 Hz monitoring. We know that we cannot release from a 500 Hz even if the signal, as it happened here, already turned green while we were waiting at the platform here. So there is no way to get out of this 20 kilometers monitoring. We have to adhere to the 20 or 25, always subtract 5 for a margin of error. We have to comply with that. As soon as we pass the signal, it should turn back into the hidden 1000 Hz. And since the 1000 Hz indicator is still on, we cannot release from that either, but at least we can go back to the 40 from the restricted 1000 Hz. And after a couple of meters traveled, the 1000 Hz lamp will go off, meaning that you can release. And I showed you in the PZB O stream that you cannot release here. At least it does not look like you can release, because the yellow text message stays on. But actually you released. It is obviously only a graphical bug. I don't get any Zwangsbremsung now that after pressing the release key I accelerate, even if it still tells me Überwachung 45 kilometers per hour. But this is obviously only a graphical glitch, not a glitch in the controlling system. Now the monitoring ended, I can go back to line speed 120. But that was interesting for me to see that obviously the game thinks that you should be able to release here. And I turned on the PZB helper that came with Train Sim World 3. And it shows you at this point that it is safe to release, and it acknowledges the release if you do it, contrary to what the MFD tells you. So, all that is left for us now is, after we have looked into these GPA magnet sets, is to drive our train home. Or not home, but to what's it called? We're not going all the way to Hoyerswerda. We're stopping earlier. No, we're running into I actually have to brake a bit harder now because I was late. I need to be below the 60. If we get the 500 Hertz, what is achieved now? So again, we stopped while we were under 1000 Hertz monitoring, meaning that we got another restricted one. 1000 Hertz, restricted, control to 45. Signals have cleared. The PZB system does not know that they have cleared. So we will have adhere to the monitoring, at least for now. Can lock our doors, and when starting off now, we mustn't overdo it, even though we are way behind our timetable because we stopped in Coswig for too long to explain stuff, and because we got the penalty brake at the GPA magnets, so not faster than 45. I cannot release even though I've got a green signal because the 1000 Hertz lamp is still on. So for the moment I cannot go faster than the 40, always subtracting the 5 kilometers from the 45, what is the actual limit. And now it has gone off, now I can release, and now I can go back to line speed. We actually have 10 kilometers to travel to Priestewitz. So it's a good thing that we can go back to line speed. Again, to demonstrate the difference between a Tempomat like on this train and an AFB like we had on the ICEs that we drove last week or the week before. The Tempomat, when I'm pumping up the speed here, even though the throttle is at only 5% power, what is the minimum that you can set it to, it will apply as much traction power, as much traction effort as it thinks is adequate, also for the braking. You cannot limit the amount of traction effort applied by the Tempomat cruise control system by reducing the power or by setting the power lever. While under or with the AFB, this is totally possible. You can limit the amount of power that the train is applying by setting the power handle to a lower value. I mentioned this new thingy that they introduced for helping you with the PZB, the safety systems helper device that you can turn on the HUD, or what is usually turned on by default and what I turned off because I don't want to have it. I want to see all what is happening on my MFD or MFA or on the controls of the locomotives in general. And this helper device does not inform you about the GPA magnets. It does inform you about a lot of stuff, about restricted monitoring, about normal monitoring. It tells you when it is safe to release, but it does not inform you about incoming GPA magnets It does not even tell you why you got a Zwangsbremsung at the GPA magnet. I actually did not check how the Dresden DLC looks at night under Train Sim World 3 conditions. If anything changed here. Because Dresden DLC is famous for its night lighting. And even though we have the dynamic weather on, just the moment I say it, it starts raining. I just wanted to say it did not start raining so far, even though with the dynamic weather it almost always starts raining in the services. And here the rain is. So what will be happening next? I think we will be just diverted to Priestewitz, to our diverging track at Priestewitz. We will be slowed down for that. We will have to do the PZB procedure for getting slowed down. Well, we all know what to do already. This is standard procedure. Only thing is that with all this fog, we probably don't see the signal as fast or from as far away. Now it is actually lightning strike as usual. Now it starts really raining heavily. And flashes, lightning strikes. Yeah. The KS1 with the flashing green light and the additional signal 3V with the green, the yellow 6 indicating that there is a 60 reduction upcoming. We did not see it from far away, but it was still enough. We got our train slowed down below the 80 and already to the 60. And here is already the platform. But again, even if it is only a reduction to 60 and not a stop signal, because we stop, we will go into a restricted monitoring. You can see I'm using a mod for the rain visuals. This is really a great mod. I love that. I'm not using a lot of mods, but for the rain visuals, it is totally worth the effort. So, closing the doors that our passengers and our train does not get wet. Don't forget that we are in the restricted monitoring because we stopped, so we will have to stay below the 40, but we can see that the 1000 Hertz monitoring lamp has already gone off because we have traveled far enough after the influencing, so that we can just release like from a starting program. Just have to make sure that we do not accelerate beyond the 60 that is allowed here through the interlockings, through the switches that take us to Großenhain. Now we are on the diverging track. We're running downhill. This is why I set the Tempomat to 55 so that we do not overshoot the mark. And as soon as we're down and on level ground, we can go to the 60. And you can see how much traction effort the Tempomat is actually applying. Just to accelerate this little bit, we passed the 100 mark. Just checking, we have 2 trains, so we need to wait a bit until we can accelerate. But now I think it is good to go the last lap to Großenhain. And accelerate to 100 for that. The downpour is still active. Also the thunderstorm. Well, with the dynamic weather, what is a great addition to the game. The occurrence of thunderstorms really increased a lot. Now we have our yellow signal announcing that we have to stop. Or was it a flashing yellow? I did not really pay attention. If it was a flashing yellow, then it was only announcing a reduction in speed limit to 60. Just like this signal, trackside signal that we just passed. In any case, we would slow down to 60 in preparation of the 500 Hz monitoring or for the reduction in track speed to 60. So it does not make a difference. Well, it obviously was a flashing yellow because here is the sign that tells us 60 now, stop later. The signal, more like. But we are already at the 60. We can hit the 500 Hz without getting a penalty brake, and so we just have the train make its way into the station. We know that after this bridge here, the station area more or less starts. Here's the 60 reduction that was announced by the trackside signs. Soon enough we will get to the platform. I still like slowing down to 40 when we're going along a platform, what we are not doing at the moment. Now we should more or less, yeah, now we got the 500 Hertz. We have a red signal at the end of the platform. What is not really bugging us because this is the last stop for our train anyway. And here we are. Obviously not a great run, but that was not the objective of playing this service here. The idea was to demonstrate how these GPA magnets work, and we have seen 2 applications of them. Do I need to lock my doors before I can end this service? Okay, then we lock the doors. And now we won't be surprised anymore when we get the penalty break before the signal that is ordering the reduction in speed limit. That's the end for the stream today. Thank you for staying with me. And on Sunday at I think 5 in our Central European time, we will be streaming again and maybe look at more specialties. Thank you for moderating, AJ. Thank you for staying with me, and take care. See you around.